G'day guys and welcome to the Centre Bounce. For this video where we will be talking some of the mid-pricer options in the backline. Stay tuned. How are we doing today, guys? Thank you so much for watching. Big J, we got quite a few players to talk about today.
Yeah, it's a real kind of position of opportunity, isn't it? These are the guys that maybe fall in premiums, like we'll talk about a couple of today and a few of the next episodes. There might be guys who were 100K players that have now jumped up, or those guys that have been in the system for a little while that are just like, cool, it's my turn to go.
Yeah. So there are some of these mid-prices that maybe started also as rookies last year, but performed really well and managed to take another step, landing them into this awkward price point where you're really hoping that they take that next step to be almost a keeper for you in that back line, looking to maybe skimp out on paying up for some of the really big primos and hoping that they can match them. We got, I think, 8 players to go through today with you, and we will start with Colby Mckercher, your boy. We'll let you go.
Mate, if you're on George's Discord, I am the Colby Mckercher King. Last year, I made the prediction better than Harley Reid, and I'll stick by better than Harley Reid. I was very happy that North could pick him up, and West Coast went a different way. Colby Mckercher has bolstered his strength, improved his running, kind of cemented a little bit where he'll play, but then he's a lot more open to playing in other positions. And I think we saw last year from him. A lot of people had him in their teams and they're not in their teams, similar to yourself, Joe. But like he played halfback and then he played a bit of wing. And then this year, he predominantly is probably doing the same thing. They love the ball in Colby Mckercher's hands. He's skillful. He can play wherever they need him to play and just pinpoint accuracy across the board as well. They are some very, very good scores there for a rookie, hence his big price. I think if he was anywhere between like 300K, he'd almost be a must-have in our teams. But at 476, there's a lot of consideration to be had.
Yeah, you're really hoping that he is playing that continued role off halfback, taking a lot of kick-ins, as we can see here, a lot of bulk kick-ins, 12 in a game, 13, 11. These aren't small numbers. Obviously, raises the floor of a player like that. We love the Seagulls off halfback. He is a very talented player. He is Zach Merritt 2.0. And the question becomes really whether or not he is going to continue playing that role behind the ball, or if they want to try and bring him up a bit higher, maybe a bit more wing time to use that ball, get that ball use going inside the forward 50. You've recruited Caleb Daniel, who's going to be playing off halfback. Absolutely. And you've still got a question mark over whether or not Fisher has a role in that side, because he did play that role with Mckercher last year. Obviously, my thoughts. I don't really rate Fisher as a player, but of course, I am not the coach of the North Melbourne Football Club, and we don't exactly know 100% what role Mckercher is going to have. If he gives you more of these hundreds, 146s, 135s, then
The
you're on
ceiling's
to an
definitely
absolute
there.
winner.
Yeah, the ceiling's definitely there with Mckercher. And I think the only question mark I really do have is, yes, we've brought in a few players, but he won't be getting 11, 13, 12 kick-ins in a game if North Melbourne are actually starting to win, because the ball's not going to be in our back line as much. That'd be my only negative thing. But then again, if that's happening, he's getting a lot of the ball and using as that transition player. I've seen a lot of best 23s at the moment that have him in a really prominent position. It could definitely work out. One to watch over the preseason.
There you go. That's Colby Mckercher. Then move on to the guy right next to him, Trent Rivers, who saw a pretty positive move into the midfield last year. I know there was a lot of Melbourne supporters who have been crying out for this move, but he finally did. We saw the first time ever a big jump in his centre bounce attendances, attending 30% of them in 2024. I think this really came about really only due to the injuries that finally that hit, unfortunately, Petrarca over there at Melbourne, and they really needed to have some more players around the ball from round 15 onwards. Yep, that's exactly right. Petrarca got injured against Collingwood, where he had 0%, and then immediately the following week, when Petrarca was out, Trent Rivers got inside. It seems, based on preseason reports, that he is continuing to feature in the midfield, given how successful of a of a performance that he had last year, playing in that midfield mix. The DPP certainly is pretty useful, and the later buy for the Melbourne Demons also means that he doesn't clash early on with some of these early buy players. He's an accumulator. He loves to get a contested ball as well. And as you can see with the scoring, if I move it across a little bit more, his scoring certainly improved quite significantly by playing in the midfield and getting those tackles and contested possessions. A lot more 90 scores with the occasional 130 and 140. So the ceiling is there at less than 470,000. I can totally see why people are considering him.
Yeah, I think kind of the general AFL change of maybe not having as many Ben Cunnington bulls in the middle and then having a lot more running players has definitely led to Rivers playing that midfield, because it's something that Melbourne hasn't had for a while. Maybe it's when Brayshaw retired, they were like, hey, we really need this type of player. But as you said, once Petrarca got injured, mate, he just kind of thrived in there. You would want a lot more 100 pluses for his price than those 45s and 80s that you get in there, but he's appropriately priced at that like 85. So it's not a terrible price for him. But you just be hoping that it's a breakout player this year.
Yeah, so he's averaged, so in those last 10 games where he started to get those bulk centre bounce attendances, he's averaged a 92.9.
Yeah.
You'd probably want, as you say, Big J, probably a little bit more than that, but you can probably say that, hey, given the fact that this was his first time playing that role, that you'd anticipate with a full preseason under his belt training in that position, that there should be some natural progression in his ability to play that role. So if you want to go that way, totally understandable.
Yeah, 100%. And I think just kind of, as you say, natural progression is a huge thing. And Melbourne trying to figure out their type of team as well, what they want to play in 2025.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is Trent Rivers. Move on to the next guy on the list, and that's Kane Farrell over there from Port Adelaide. And the reason why he's even being considered is because of Dan Houston's leave, right, Big J?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a bit of a video, probably not today, but definitely over the next week or so, of what happens with Port Adelaide's backline. But Kane Farrell, Logan Evans, and a few other players, definitely, there's a lot of points to be had without Houston there. And Kane Farrell has been one of those guys that's been talked about as must-have. I remember throughout the season, I was a loyal Houston owner. I brought him in at the start of the season and definitely loved those really good scores. But I think it was maybe halfway through the season when Farrell started to get a little bit more ball in the back line. We see halfway through there, the first few games at the bottom, cool, not many kickouts. And then through the middle, towards the end, 8, 7, 5, all these numbers. It's like, mate, if Houston's gone, they love the ball in this guy's hands. And at 445K, we could be having a steal here, Joe. Just one to watch over the preseason as to where they want to set up in that back line and how they want to do that. But he's got the pace and the know-how and the decent enough disposal efficiency that it's a viable scorer and a viable outlet for them.
Yeah. There's a question, whether or not it's him or Burton potentially, or even a Jace Burgoyne or a Logan Evans, as you mentioned before. There is still, or a Sin. Yeah, like there are quite a few names there to be considered. So not one that we're immediately rushing to say, yes, select or immediately fade. Definitely one that we need to keep a close eye on in the preseason. I know as a Houston owner myself, I was very infuriated when Farrell and Burton were having the ball and they weren't giving it off to Houston. So one to definitely keep an eye on. And he definitely might see an uptick in scoring without Houston, because Houston was averaging a lot. And that's a lot of points now that are up for grabs in that Port Adelaide backline.
Yeah, definitely. I guess kind of it's a bit of a vacuum, isn't it? When a 100-plus player leaves, there's a lot of points to be shared around.
Exactly right. So that is Kane Farrell. Next on the list is Jayden Short. Definitely an older one. Has been in the system for a lot longer. People would recognize, a lot of people who have played Supercoach in the past might remember owning Jayden
Mhm.
Short in their side once upon a time, playing that wonderful Jayden Short role. You guys know what I think about Jayden Short as a selection. Personally speaking, not the biggest fan of him, because not him as a person, but as a player in Supercoach, because even at his best in the prime of his career, he's never cracked even a 99 average, let alone a 100 average. But this round, you're paying 442,000 for him, which is a lot less than what you would have paid for him in the past. And if he can give you that type of scoring, you might consider it worthwhile.
Yeah, you definitely need Jayden Short of old to kind of come back. But with a lot of players leaving this team and a few other players kind of moving around, you really hope that something like that can happen. That's why he's on our watch list for today. That's why he's one of the guys that we're tracking, because at his price, 100%. I'm a big advocate and kind of I always say each team generally has one or two players at 500K in the backline. I don't believe Richmond really have that at the moment. So there's a lot of points and a lot of price and availability and whatnot that he could, give you. I guess kind of the early buy is probably a big thing as well.
Yeah, like
Not
they're
having the early
obviously
buy.
correct. Them losing Rioli, him leaving to go to the Gold Coast. Now it's a
Yep.
very young team. They've Baker's gone as well. So the young, it's certainly a very young team now, the youngest team in the competition. So do they think that it's important to have the mature, experienced head of Jayden Short in the back line to solidify the back line? And we all think that Richmond are probably going to be the wooden spooners this year, which means that you'd
Mhm.
anticipate a lot of supply for him in the back line. So
A
that
lot
could
of
also
kickouts.
a lot of kickouts. Exactly. So, if you're thinking Jayden Short has got that perfect mix of responsibility, role, and Richmond sucking, then you might be on to potentially a winner, because it's not like he has, you know, it's not like he's had the best injury history either. So that's
Mm,
another risk there. And he's not the youngest player either. So that's another risk that you have to factor in. But as we always say here, you start the injury risk, you don't trade it in.
that's very true. Now, Joe, we have been going 1 for 1, 1 for 1, but I would love to do Lawson Humphries because I had him last year in Supercoach. So I
Very
might say,
well.
can you tell us about? Maybe we'll do Matt Roberts first. You tell us about Matt Roberts. Why have a lot of people put him in their teams at the moment? We saw some good scoring towards the end of last year, but what do you reckon?
Definitely a lot of optimism about his upside, and the fact that the new coach, Cox, loves Matt Roberts, has publicly raved about him, expressed how much he rates this kid. And it's understandable, because he is a very good footballer and he was performing very well during the season until, of course, he was unfortunately relegated to the wing when Lloyd came back into the side.
Mm-hmm.
I think if the Swans really want to progress, crazy considering that they were in a grand final, but you can't live in the past, and it's a new season and everyone starts basically from scratch once again. But if the Swans really want to ensure that they continue to feature deep into finals, they really need to ensure that they keep blooding, pun intended, the youth, and that they continue to give them roles of responsibility. You look at how he performed when he was taking a lot of the kick-ins, 5 kick-ins, 6 kick-ins, 9 kick-ins. He's playing on all the time from those ones, and he's got some really good scores. Plays at the SCG, which is a narrower ground, and therefore means that you can, of course, he can find the pill very easily from there. He's a beautiful ball use and can kick his way through opposition zones as well. So there is certainly a lot of potential. He has shown consistency. He has shown a ceiling, as well as the fact that the new coach does love him. Some players think that he is a better selection than someone else that we're about to talk about in a later in a little bit. But I can understand why people are big on Matt Roberts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Sydney, they made the grand final, but to get to the next level, I really do think that they need to change some things up. Parker leaving definitely opens up a few different things for them.
Mhm.
Maybe Roberts gets there. The one thing for me with Roberts is being that type of defender that he is. he really needs that time on ground to improve. There's a lot of 70s and a few 80s in that time on ground. And if he wants to do better, obviously time on ground means more ball, which means higher super coach potential. So we need to start seeing a few more 90s or at least high 80s and less 60s and 70s for him to be a much more certain type of pick than some other players on this list.
Yeah. So, to keep a close eye on him in the preseason. And the benefit of Roberts playing for the Swans is that he does play in round 0 or opening round. So you get a free look at him in the preseason to confirm what sort of role he's playing and whether or not Cox does live up to his love of Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Your boy.
Bro, Lawson Humphries, the guy that carried me from what? I think ranked 1,200 just to snoop in into the 650s. Geelong are the best at picking up mature age talent. People talk about Sydney and the Dogs and a few other teams. Geelong came through. They poached this guy, mid-season draftee, starting at 117K. Look at some of the scoring, Joe. I will not say it, but I'm going to say that he was one of the reasons why single-handedly Tom Stewart moved a little bit more towards the midfield because they didn't need him as that distributor off halfback. There's a lot of kick-ins there. Maybe not as much, but he was sometimes used as kick-ins and then used as the guy that was given the ball after the kick-ins just because of his speed. And similar to Mckercher, this guy can pinpoint kicks. He's the taller version of Caleb Daniel. He could see a guy halfway around in between 5 and then bullet pass the ball straight in there. And we saw that with a few of the big scores last year. He is 418K. But there is definitely potential, and he will feature in Geelong's best 22 this year. Mate, I'm excited. I just need to see some decent preseason for him, and you may see Lawson Humphries in my starting team in round 1. We'll see. We'll see. But, yeah, I really love this kid. He's doing very, very well, and just as an AFL footballer, be excited to see his progression. Maybe not as a non-Geelong fan, but Geelong fans, keep in touch.
It sucks that he's got an early bye playing for the Cats, which is a little unfortunate, but he is a class act, and it's just ridiculous how Radaglia, them haggling over a late pick for Radaglia, ended up getting them Lawson Humphries, and he just comes in first game and scores a 91 if you don't mind. So he's got a quite decent time on ground. He knows how to keep his width, presents as a great option, takes plenty of marks, and they love to play a controlling game style, the Cats, and I can't see really much regression in this kid. If anything, there's only improvement. The only question is there going to be enough improvement to warrant starting him with that early buy at 418K, or would you rather pay up a little bit more for an Uber for a premium with confirmed history? So that's one to keep a watch and a very close watch on in the preseason.
And that's why he's in the breakout players video, right? It's not like these are much certain locks. Chuck him in there. Yeah. Guys to watch over the next few weeks heading into round 0 and then the preseason games as well.
Exactly. Then move to Callum Mills. This guy is very well known in Supercoach circles. He is not his first rodeo. He has a history of scoring very good. 2020 he scored 101 average. In 2021, 112. In 2022, 115. Before, of course, having some injuries and being messed around with the role due to Horst Longmire. Horst Longmire is now gone. And Callum Mills is in ripping shape. He's as fit as he's ever been, according to reports. And he has bulked up as well. Taking that all into account, you might think that this guy is priming himself for a midfield return. And if that is the case, then we could be seeing an Uber Primo at under 400K.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you'd hope that at his price, he gets you to 500K because then you can at least justify the change. If you've got to spend the trade, you've made some money on there. But at his price, really, similar to a lot of these guys, you want to be keeping him for the whole year. Sydney's one of those weird teams, similar to Roberts, where they need to move a few things around. My only problem with Callum Mills, and we kind of spoke about this off air a little bit, is just that he's kind of the stopgap fixer. And if the new coach says, cool, don't do that. We want you midfield. We want you halfback. We want you kick-ins, 100%. But it's the reason why I wasn't hot on Sicily last year is the same reason why it's where it's with Mills now. He's currently in my team because he's a cheaper price, but you might find him on a wing one day. You might find him trying to tag someone. You might find him in the forward line. Like, you just don't know. And that uncertainty kind of hurts you a little bit.
Yeah, he's a real utility type player, and as the captain, he is a very selfless player as well, and he will do whatever the team requires. And we saw it quite regularly when he was healthy. Even he might be dominating a game, and he might be on like 70 or 80 at halftime. But for security purposes, you'll just see Horst Longmire tell him, all right, play that sweeper defensive role behind the ball and be a goalkeeper in defense, which of course limits the amount of scoring that he would have by the end of the game. He's just so talented at doing so much around the ground that unfortunately it opens him up to being put into less than ideal roles. He certainly needs to have over 70% CBAs. I mean, with CBAs are over 70%, he has an incredible average, which if you think that he's going to feature very predominantly in the midfield as a centre bounce attendee, and from the reports with him having bulked up and being in terrific shape, he can very easily average 100. And he sort of has done that in the past with his scores. He's even had a score of 200. And that was incredible to watch against the Hawks. So he can go 100 average at 357K. Does that make him a keeper? It might not. You might want to bump it up, but at least by that point, he might have made you sufficient cash to trade up to an Uber premium, whilst also giving you some respectable scores on the field rather than having a rookie score. So there is a balancing act with having Callum Mills on your side. Might not be necessarily the best scoring, but it's definitely better than having a rookie.
Or maybe if he gets moved around a little bit, you might get a cheeky DPP and then he ends up being a bench cover for the rest of the year. Not too bad for 357K. Joe, I'm going to throw you a little bit under the bus here. Not that I did it already with Matt Roberts, but Archie Roberts. I'm not going to say they're brothers. They do have the same last name. I know nothing about this kid. Why is he on our list?
He is on our list because he played 4 games last year and he did very, very well in them. Unfortunately, he did too well in those 4 games, and it's caused him to have a pretty awkward price now all of a sudden. His first game, he was a little bit, as you are in your first game, you can be a little bit nervous and shy and fumbly a little bit. Only had the 56 disposal efficiency in that first game for a 46. Starts to find his feet a little bit in the second game with 16 disposal at 81. He scores a 75. Then he's really getting into the game and he just gets a 25 disposals and then a 28 disposals, both at over 70% efficiency. And he even manages to take a kick in the last game as well. So this guy has shown that he is very classy, very, very composed, and is a wonderful distributor off of half back. He was also, a guy that managed to kick a goal for us in one of the games, and we all lost our crap because this guy was so good. But this is a heat map for someone who's barely played 4 games of AFL football, and it's quite impressive to see. So a lot of people, this is a glorious heat map. This, for someone who's barely played 4 games and is a good ball user, there is so much potential for this guy at under 340K. He's also got the DPP as well. So I can totally understand that people reckon that this guy could break out. A bit like your Lawson Humphries pick from last year. He sort of just got in the game and then just started to just had a pretty quick rise. Archie Roberts obviously didn't have enough time to do that, having entered the season in the last 4 games. But you can sort of see that he was building towards a Lawson Humphries-esque type of rise. And so people are predicting that they're going to see more of the same. He is training in the back line still with the A team. He is guaranteed to be in our best 22 week in, week out, as well, playing off half back. I think we're going to be entrusting more responsibility to him coming out of defense as opposed to Nick Martin, who's training more in the midfield. So a lot of positive signs pointing towards Archie Roberts being a wonderful pick for us moving forward, even beyond this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Essendon need to move a few players around off air. We've spoken a lot about the likes of Jackson Pryor and a few others. And yeah, one of the areas of need for them. So if another player comes in, 338K, there's opportunity there. And that's why we track them during the preseason.
Of course. Now, I will have to say also that a big thing to keep in mind with Archie Roberts, as much as we love him to bits at the Bombers and we wish we had more of him, this game and him playing these 4 games were without Jordan Ridley in the team. And Jordan Ridley is going to be, fingers crossed, hopefully Jordan Ridley is fit and plays a bit more football for us this year, which means that we do have a few chefs in the kitchen in our backline. Does that mean that there is less supply for Roberts because she's sharing points with Rids? I think that is the case. So not one that I've personally got in my team at the moment, but injuries are bound to occur during the course of the season. And if anyone of, a Ridley or a Redmond or someone was to go down, God forbid, you can totally see a big uptick in Archie Roberts scoring from that point on.
Yeah, definitely. Guys, that's our look at the mid prices in the back line that we think, hey, might be those breakout players, either the guys that are going to make us enough money to upgrade or the guys that we can keep all the year. Let us know down in the comments who you guys want to pick. And if you like the stuff, like, share, subscribe.
Absolutely, because we will be going through each of the lines, giving our opinions across, of course, the midfield, the rucks, and the forward lines. We'll also be going over the rookie price players as well. So this is the initial starting, the mid-pricer. We will, of course, go over the rookie price players after that as well. So make sure you hit that notification bell to ensure that you don't miss out on any of the streams and videos that we'll be pumping out this preseason.
Guys, it's going to be fun. Supercoach, well, not Supercoach, but the AFL's got about 60 days to go. Mate, stay tuned because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you guys don't have to. Bye for now.